Welcome to Sikbaggers YouTube channel. I'm Steve. Today, got kind of an updated video for you. I'd say it's probably about 3 or 4 years ago we did the whiskey project, the Amber Whiskey Road Glides, 2015 Road Glide. Brought it in here pretty well bone stock. One of the first things I did to it was air ride, and then we did a fat tire kit on the front of it. Along with the fat tire kit, I also ordered a 2-inch lowering block from DD Customs. So that block is designed to lower that fairing 2 inches. We got the 2-inch block. Now, DD Custom has 3 different size blocks, and we'll cover some questions that we didn't cover in the first video, and I'm going to show you the proper way to do it today. When I shot that video, I wasn't quite sure the easiest way to get that block in there, so I just kind of sat and brainstormed with a buddy of mine, and we were like, we'll just take the bolts out, kind of hoist it away from the bike, slide the block in, put it back on. Now, that worked. But if you don't take your time and you're not careful of what you're doing, you do take the chance of scratching your inner fairing. But there is an easier way to do that. And I know that now, 3 years later, we all learn from our mistakes. So I am taking the opportunity now to reshoot this video for you to show you the proper way to do this. Before I get into the install video, I do want to cover a couple of super common questions that I get all the time on lowering your fairing. If you have a full-size engine guard on a Road Glide, you will see a fairing bracket that goes from the engine guard up to the inside of the fairing right here. It's just a little flat piece of metal that goes up in there, and it helps support the weight of the fairing. Like on this model, it came with a chopped engine guard, a very small one here. So what it has now is this engine guard up here. It's a black U-shaped engine guard that mounts to the top right here, and it comes out and goes up and helps support the weight of the fairing. They both do the exact same thing. They're just different ways of doing it. Either way you have it on your bike, if you do a fairing drop, that gets eliminated. So the biggest question that I get is, man, don't I need something in there to support the weight of that fairing? On a 2013 and older Road Glide, absolutely. You better get that hidden fairing bracket that goes up in there and helps hold the weight of the fairing. 2015 and newer, absolutely not. Take the fairing support brackets out, throw them in the trash, put them in your cabinet, whatever you want to do with them. You absolutely do not need them. On a 2015 and newer Road Glides, the guts that are inside here with the radio frame and the pods and all that stuff, this super solid fairing. This joker and those little things on that go down to your crash bar, not needed. So the next question that I always get is, can I run lower fairings down here on my engine guard? That's where the 3 different sizes come into play. We got a 1.65 inch block, so it lowers at 1.65 inches. We got a 2-inch block and a 3-inch block. If you want to run lower fairings and this fairing come down and these little wingding things don't hit your lower fairings, you have to choose the 1.65 inch block. You cannot go any lower than that first size block. One other thing to note real quick too is you cannot use this on cut and rake trees. This is designed to go on the OEM net kit or the HHI 23 rake kit. You can use it on those two. So the third most common question that I get on this is the Road Glide lower fairing skirt. That came out a couple of years ago, I think started on the CVOs maybe, but I get a lot of questions that if I lower my fairing, can I still run that fairing skirt? Absolutely not. If we think about it real quick, it goes from the bottom of this down around your oil cooler and back up the other side. It is an exact fit. So if we lower our fairing, right, won't work. This is the 2-inch block. I'm going to get it up on our camera so you can see it a little bit better. You can see that it has 2 sets of 4 holes. So you got 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. This does have the hooks in the bottom, just like your fairing is right now, where your inner fairing hooks into this so you can tilt it, right? So that is all the same. It's clearly marked right here at the top what size it is. You may not be able to see that on camera because it's black, but it says 2-inch right there. It does have the holes in the bottom right here. This is where your inner fairing sets in there and hooks in there. So when you get this installed in there, it's going to literally take your fairing and push it about 1 inch forward and then drop it down 2 inches, and it just makes the Road Glide look way more aggressive. So when you drop that lower fairing, it's all this massive crap just out of your face. It lowers it down so you can see the road way better. And I will say this about your windshield: if you lower your fairing 2 inches, you've also dropped your windshield 2 inches. Now, more than likely, 99% of you out there that do this, the windshield that you have on there is going to be adequate. Now, I will say this about windshields: I had a Clockworks windshield on that bike when we did it. It lowered it down. It was fine. I rode it like that for a couple of years. But look wise, for me, I ended up selling that one to a buddy of mine and picking up a new one that was about 1.5 inches shorter, and it did the exact same thing. It wasn't any different than the one I had on there, but look wise for me, looking at the bike, it was smaller, so it was more aggressive and it just fit the bike better. So the last question that I get quite often is, if I lower this fairing down 2 inches, I'm going to take the chance of smacking my fender on the bottom of my fairing. You can do a 19, a 21, an 18.55 fat tire with a stock fender or a wrapper fender, doesn't matter. Under full compression, it's not going to hit that fairing. Now, if you're going any bigger than that, like a standard 23 or taller, or a 21 fat tire or taller, you are going to have to put it on there, do a full compression test, and test if you need bump stops. I did a full install video on front air ride, and it talks about bump stops, and I'll put a link right up here. It'll be popping up here, and you can click that later and watch that video if you're not super familiar with bump stop. What you do is these little rings that you put in here, and you measure them out and you put them on your forks, and it stops your fender from compressing up. It'll hit the bump stops before it actually smacks your fairing. So now that we got those questions covered, let's lower this front end and make this bike look a little bit more aggressive than it does now. So the first thing we need to do is get the outer fairing off. If right underneath these speaker grills is 2 bolts, get you a little plastic pry tool like this. Please don't use something metal. You'll end up scratching something. But you're going to go in here into the edge and kind of work that down in. There's a clip here and a clip up here, and it's going to be the same on both sides. You get one of them up, you can usually use your fingers, and then this side here just pulls out. Now we want to get our windshield bolts out. Now we got those out, we're going to pull up on this right here and pop this off, just like that. Right here on the bottom, you'll see these 2 little clips here. Go right in top of the radio bracket. Now, as soon as I do that, I go ahead and disconnect my turn signals, just because I'm here. It doesn't matter when you do that, just make sure you disconnect these before you go pulling on this fairing. The next 2 bolts are going to be these turn signal bolts, going to be a 3/16 Allen. We're going to go ahead and bust those loose. No, that does not remove your turn signal. It just breaks the outer fairing loose from the inner fairing. 2 Torx 25 bolts right here. You only have to remove the bottom one and leave the top one on. The last 2 bolts are underneath the speaker covers right here, Torx 27, 1 on each side. I'm going to loosen these but not remove them. Once you take these 2 screws out, this fairing comes off. The reason why I do it like that is because I can get in front of this fairing and hold it, and I can reach over, and I've got my body up against the fairing. I can just undo these 2 screws. Now you can remove these 2 screws first if you want to, and leave your 2 windshield bolts up here and do that last, however you want to do it. I just like having my body weight against that so it doesn't go anywhere. Always make sure to protect your fender first before you start doing this. Then you just slide the outer fairing off like this. Just like that off the bike. So right here on top of the headlight, you'll see the back end of a Christmas tree plug is what I call them. There's a black one and a white one. So those are on the other side of this bracket. This bracket is held on by this one black one. You can use that plastic pry tool like we did on the speaker grills, or you can get yourself a little tool like this. It's just kind of made for those things. And we're just going to pop that off like that. There's another one over here. Pop that one out. So if you don't have this internal like antenna thing here, these things would just be poked in right here on these 2 clips on top of the headlight. So you would just pop those out. So now that plug, and that plug, they're all off the headlight. So we can remove the headlight now. So now you can get to the headlight bolts, 4 bolts, one here, here, and here. Long extension like this to get to those back ones. But we're gonna pull these 4 bolts out. Now we can pull this headlight assembly straight out and go ahead and unplug it. Now right here on the side of the bike, you've got your fairing support bracket. This is if you have the chopped engine guard, it's going to come up here and mount here. Even if you have the full engine guard, you'll have one that goes around the engine guard and up here underneath this and connect in the same place. So it's going to be a 7/16 bolt. We're going to remove that on both sides. First thing we can do is go to the back of the radio and we can disconnect this antenna. There's a little clip on the bottom. Just grab it with a pair of needle nose, squeeze it and pull it down. A little clip on the bottom right there. Set that off to the side. The middle one is your AM/FM antenna. This blue one over here is your GPS. A little clip on the bottom. You can turn this sideways, take your needle nose, squeeze that little clip and pull that off. And this one here is your USB that goes up into your glove box. Just pull that off. Those three are disconnected, and they say right on top of the stock radio where they go back. So when you're taking out these wires, and it may seem a little intimidating to do, but honestly, they do a really good job of making wires only go to one place. So they're pretty well cut to length, and then the ends of them are usually different, so you can't mess up putting this back together. The next one is going to be this big one right here that goes into the back of the radio. We have a little button right here kind of that pushes down. We're going to push that down and then push this lever over. It's like a door kind of. So we're going to push this in, push that over, and as you push it out, it's actually going to release from the radio. So that is your main one there. And we got another white Christmas tree here. This one is connected to this one, but it also goes through the radio tray. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect that one. And we can pull this wire to the center. Like I said, we need all of this stuff to the center of the bike. So this wire now comes to the center of the bike. We got the two extra wires that go up to the hand guards, which you may not have those. You got this main wire right here that went through this side of the tray that plugged in here. That's coming through the center. And then this one over here, this main harness, which is this one, which we just disconnected, we're going to poke that back through. And that's all of the wires coming through the center of that neck. So this black one over here has to be disconnected. It's like this white one. We're going to disconnect that one. Right, because this one has to go through the center, so we're going to poke that one through first. Just take your time poking these through, because it's a lot of wires having to go through a pretty small hole. So you have to kind of have to do one of these at a time. So we're going to get down here. We got that black one through. We're going to pull up our main harness. I'm going to pull it to about right there. I'm going to push this big one back through. Get that big one out of the way first. Just get in here, turn it. Like I said, just take your time and it'll go. You got to kind of twist them and turn them until you get them all the way through. That one's through, so now we got the big one through. The rest of them are pretty easy. You can pull this gray one and these two. So the remaining ones are this black one and these two gray ones, and they're all plugged off. This isn't even stuff that we had hooked up. These are just under your fairing for other stuff. So we're going to pull them through. These are smaller. You can generally get a couple of these through at a time. There goes the two gray and black. And then we got left is the black one. Get it through. That's that simple. So there's your main harness right there. So everything that's coming through this neck is now in center of the square. So once you pull these 4 bolts right here, those are your 4 main bolts like we said a while ago. This will not fall. There's 2 catches right down here, 2 holes that the bottom of this has teeth that it sits in. So we're going to go ahead now and just loosen these bolts. We have to have all the wires coming through the center, kind of centered up like this. So I will take this stuff and I will just throw a cheap zip tie around it to make this easier. Put that around it. So this just makes this easier when you're doing this by yourself. You don't have wires hanging out and you think you got them all out and there's one still hanging. That just makes a kind of a rope out of it, I guess. So before you pull this off, make sure you got a place to put it. So I'm going to stand up here. I'm going to rock this forward a little bit. Like I said, I usually come in here and I grab the bottom of it right in the middle. So I got my arm over it. I'm going to lift up and then I'm going to start pulling it away from the bike and feeding these wires through that square hole. Just like that. You got your bracket here. It's got the slots in the bottom where your fairing sits to make sure that they're facing out. And what's cool about his bracket is it actually has a slot in the bottom, so we can just slide this over the wires. There's absolutely no cutting wires, no drilling. So we're going to set this into place. You can see this back side here is cut. That's going to set on the old brackets. So we're going to set that into place. Just like that. Our new bolts, we're going to blue Loctite, and we're going to put these in the 4 holes that we took the outer fairing off with. And then we got these 4 holes here that the fairing is going to mount back to. It's going to be a 1/4 inch Allen, so we have that ready. Now, Loctite 243 is what I use, is a medium strength Loctite. I always get these big bottles because Loctite and your Harley Davidson are absolutely best friends. So we're going to start this bolt. Right down here at the bottom of our fairing support bracket, you've got 2 bolts, one on top, one on bottom. It's going to pull this fairing support bracket off. Pull that straight down and out. Going to get our fairing. I'm going to go ahead and gently set it on that fender cover. I'm going to start feeding our wires back through. Pull it up and hook those 2 teeth to help you hold it. Like that, and then you can finish pulling these through. Everything's through. We're going to gently rock it back. Make sure we're locked into place. Take your original 4 bolts, load those up with some blue Loctite. You can hand start these 4. Go ahead and cut our 2 zip ties that we use to keep it all together. Now we can take our white one, make sure to put it. So now we can start on this right side. We can poke this back through the radio tray here on the side. Put those wires, both those wires back through there, just like that. Go ahead and plug your white one back in. Get our left side, we'll start with the small ones. Just reverse order of the way we took everything out. Now plug it back into the side right there where that one goes. So we have that white one that clips on this side. Like that, and our black one clips on this side. We're going to bring our large one back up to the radio. When you pull this over, it'll suck it right into the radio. I'll bring our antennas back over. Our USB. Go ahead and plug our white antenna back in. That's our AM/FM antenna, and that'll go above the headlight. Bring our GPS antenna over. Get it plugged in. This is our headlight. We just had kind of tucked up out of the way. Now we just double check real quick to make sure everything's hooked up. Now I'm going to be installing an attack headlight that I took out of my other bike back in here instead of the stock one. It's a good time to go ahead and do that. Get it plugged in. Get our extensions. And this is going to mount the same way your stock one mounted. So no difference, just a different style headlight. So I'm just going to lay this right here. I'm going to reroute these antennas, and then we'll get the outer fairing back over here and we'll get it put back on, and we'll see what it looks like. Now we're going to grab our outer fairing. Slide this back up into place. I'm going to start these 2 screws, and it'll hold that fairing for us while we get everything else ready. I'm going to grab our 2 blinker bolts. Go ahead and get those 2 started. And don't tighten anything down until I get everything installed. Gonna come over here and grab our little wing bolts in the bottom. And this is why I leave everything loose until I get all the bolts in. And sometimes you have to maneuver that outer fairing around just a little bit to get these to line up with the brass grommets that are on the inner fairing. I'll go ahead and run these in. Our little wing screws in. Get our top 2 bolts. We're going to go ahead and plug our turn signals back in. Pop our vent back on. Whatever windshield trim you might have, go ahead and put that back on. This bike's fairly new, so it's still pretty stock. We run these in from the inside out. So you tuck this side under, line it up with those 2. tuck the outside, roll it in, snap it into place. So I took a picture of the before and the after, and I tried to get my camera in the exact same spot both times. I'll throw both of them up here on the side of me here, and you can clearly see how this fairing has dropped. Now from the side, you did push an inch forward and 2 inches down. So when you push that fairing forward and down a couple of inches, it just gives it a more lean and a just aggressive look. And that's what I liked about it when I saw it. And then I also added that fat tire kit to it, and that thing just looks like a freaking tank now. Now, whether or not you stay with a 19 or a 21 or a fat tire with this drop kit, it's going to look good. You're going to like it when you're on the bike. It gets that big honking fairing just out of your face. You got this big, huge dash just in your face the whole time. Just kind of pushes it forward a little bit and drops it down. Like I said, they got a 1.65, they got a 2 inch and a 3 inch. I like the 2 inch. I don't mind my shop over here. It's still a little bit of a mess, but you can see that side profile on that Road Glide. That is a 2 inch drop as well. That 2 inch drop's been on there for about 4 years with the front and the rear air ride sitting on a center stand. So I'm gonna say, even if you've never done one of these before and you don't have a whole bunch of amps and wires and all kinds of crap up there to take out, you're looking at about 45 minutes to an hour. You can have your whole fairing off, lowering block put in, fairing put back on, everything plugged back in. It's pretty simple to do. Don't stress out, don't freak out about the wire harnesses. They really only go in one spot. There's not like 6 connectors under there that you need to tape and write what they go to. They have different connectors on everything. You cannot mess it up. Only thing you have to do is make sure that everything is plugged back in. So I knew I wanted to do it to this Road Glide, so I wanted to get it on camera for you to show you how easy it is to do versus the way I did it before. We're not going to talk about the way I did it before because I think I had a stroke that day. So if you want to get your hands on one of these, check out DD Custom's website. I will put the link down in the description down below straight to the lowering blocks. There's only one page for the lowering blocks. You can select the 3 sizes that he has. Check out the rest of his website too, because he has a ton of stuff on that website, not just lowering blocks. He doesn't just make a lowering block. He's all kinds of stuff on that website. Make sure you surf around there. You'll probably find some pretty cool stuff for your sled. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, don't forget to hit that like, hit the subscribe, tell your friends about us. I'm gonna get out of here and get myself back to work. I hope to see you in the next video, but until then, as always, be safe. Keep your knees in the breeze. Hey, thanks for stopping by and checking out our videos today. If you like what you see, make sure you hit that like button, hit the little subscribe button popping up over here. If you want to check out more of our content, I've got 2 videos right here that'll get you started. Not really going to say anything else, just click one of those videos and take you to another video.